favorite techniques is cording or piping. The first thing I start with is the stitch selector on A, which is the straight stitch center needle position, and then I adjust my stitch length to 2.5. I actually use the zipper foot, and on the Baby Lock Zest this is included. And one of the reasons that I like the zipper foot is because it has that groove for coils. It is an ideal groove for 1/8 inch piping or cording, and that's typically what I use. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to wrap my fabric around my cording so that I'm looking at the right side of my fabric, and I place it underneath my presser foot, giving myself a little bit of fabric and cording at the back side so I have something to hang on to. And then I'm going to take a couple of stitches, just make sure everything's adjusted. And this works out beautifully because what that groove does is it pushes the fabric up against that piping and then our cording, and then my needle hits right there. So what I'm going to have is I'm going to have very professional designer quality looking piping, whether it be for a home deck project that I might be working on, or possibly even for a garment that I might be inserting piping along a sleeve edge or within a pocket. So I'm just going to continue to sew to the end, making sure that I wrap my fabric around my cording and that my needle stays tight to that cording. I'm coming up to the end here, and I'm just going to go ahead and stop and take my needle out of my fabric, raise my presser foot. I'm going to cut my threads, and now we're going to take a look at our cording. So you can see how nice and professional this cording looks. And you've got those nice grooves, so the piping actually is very pronounced. Another great foot to use, another foot that a lot of people like to use, is what we call the purl and piping foot. And the great thing about this foot is it's clear, so you can see through, and it also has a groove. Sometimes the groove has a little bit more security to it. Some students like, or some sewers like that security of having that tunnel so that cording doesn't slide around on you as you're sewing. So again, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to wrap my cording in my fabric. But there's one minor adjustment when I place my fabric underneath here. I've got that little extra lift you can see, which is really nice. It's great having that lift on the Zest for those projects that might have a little bit more bulk. The thing that I need to adjust is my stitch selector. I need to take it from A to B to move the needle a little bit further to the left. If I had left it on A, the needle would have actually come down into my cording, and I want that needle to sit to the left of my cording. The other thing that I'm going to do is while I am sewing is that I'm going to make sure that my cording always stays a little bit to the left so that the needle can get a little closer to it. Now again, one of the reasons that a lot of individuals, sewers, students like this foot is because it's got a tunnel or a groove, so that that piping is always secure as you're sewing it. It's always riding in that groove, versus on the zipper foot where it kind of hangs off to the side. Again, you're going to pull your cording to the left and making sure you're wrapping that piping or that cording around that piping, fabric, around that piping really well. So I'm going to go ahead, keep wrapping, and I'm going to sew to the end. And this might be a case where I use, instead of straight to the grain fabric, I might use bias fabric because it wraps around that cording just a little tighter and will give me a little more of a pronounced look to my cording. I'm coming up on the end. So I'm going to go ahead and stop, take that needle out of the fabric, raise my presser foot, and go ahead and cut those threads. And here is my piping or my cording with foot number 2. And you can see how, again, with using this foot, I have perfect or beautiful or professional piping. So you have two methods for your piping or to create your piping. Your first method is to use the standard zipper foot that comes with your machine, and the second method is to use the cording or purl and piping foot. So you've now seen two different ways to create professional looking piping on the Baby Lock Zest.